was walking home today from dropping off my kids at school, I always take some time to reflect. I truly love just taking walks and having that time to really think about all of the things. If you guys remember, a few months ago, I shared a post in my community tab and I mentioned how I am literally the friend. This is how I describe myself. I'm literally the friend who will sit up with you until midnight or later, just talking about the deep things in life. I honestly truly love having heart-to-heart conversations, and the people in my life who I feel like I've really let in, they seem to know that about me, and I honestly think a lot of people really like that quality. So I'm going to share a little heart-to-heart here on my channel, because that's always what I've wanted my channel to be, is transparent, honest, and just me sharing from the heart. So as I was walking home from dropping my kids off at school this morning, it just dawned on me how much I've truly changed as a person. And sometimes I've questioned, is that for the better or is it for the worst? I was just thinking about my past self and how I'm gonna just say over 15 years, because that's kind of how far I want to go back. But over the course of 15 years, from the time I was 15 to the time I'm now 30, I've seen significant change in myself, right down to my very core values. And I know a lot of people are going to be thinking, well, 15 years is a long time. That is a decade plus. And I just want to say it definitely is. But sometimes I feel like we try so hard to hang on to past, previous versions of ourselves, and we sometimes just get in the way of our own growth because we are afraid of changing. I certainly was afraid of changing. I was incredibly insecure, and not just insecure, but I also felt like I lived a kind of drifter sort of existence. I literally had I feel like because I had no self-confidence, and when I say none, I've literally never met a person who was as insecure as I was at 15. Personally, in my own friend group, I never met friends who, well, unless they may have been, but they covered it up really well. Generally, they pretty much knew what their hobbies were, their interests, kind of their direction in life. And at 15, I honestly just didn't have that. Like, I literally had no direction and literally was kind of just in it for the life of the party, which if you talk to any of my old friends, they will testify of this. I was kind of always down for a good time, and that's really the only direction I had, even though, I'll be honest, I never felt like I was living an authentic life doing any of that stuff. When I would go to parties, and some of these parties were, not just like a little bit of alcohol, but when I would go and go to these parties, I never felt like I was where I should be. I never felt like it was authentic to me. It literally just felt like the thing to do at 15, especially because and honestly, as much as I love all the people around me, I don't feel like there was any specific push or urgency to really pursue what I actually liked. And honestly, I didn't even know what I liked, other than a few little things. I didn't have any deeply rooted hobbies or interests, and even to this day, I really struggle. And sometimes it's difficult because when I think of something, I'm like, oh, I really like that, but then I kind of take a step back and I'm like, do I like that? I don't even know. Is that something I would be interested in? Am I good at that? But this literally has been 15 years of my life of struggling with this, because even at 30, actually, I can't really say that. So whenever I was 15, I ended up working as a housekeeper, a chambermaid, and I never thought it was a permanent thing, but I really did enjoy it. I enjoyed all of the people, the friendships, and all of that. And honestly, it kind of was a good turning point for me, because it got me out of that party lifestyle, because now I was working full time at 16 years old, paying my own rent and bills. And that was a real blessing, because it really pulled me out of what I was familiar with and was kind of kicked my ass into gear, to be honest. That really kicked me into gear, and I started feeling I don't know, just I it just, like I said, it got me out of that. But I was still an incredibly like insecure person, and I really didn't see any sort of future for myself, to be honest. Like I didn't really, I didn't know what was next. And because of that, it led to like, I feel like my life literally just fell into my lap, because it was literally just my entire life for the most part at this point was just, how do I say, consequences to my actions that were not forethought. So everything that was happening in my life, it was not thought out. I honestly didn't have a moral compass at all. I didn't have God, really. I just honestly, at this point, was an atheist, and like literally self-proclaimed atheist, did not care. And I didn't have any moral guide at all. And so because of that, I feel like I really was just constantly living a life that was a response to bad choices or poorly choices that I didn't really decide. It was just kind of like I did things and this happened and I rolled with it. Like I really had this roll with the punches thing, and it wasn't that good. And so whenever I hit around 17, I had mentioned to my boyfriend at the time that I was going to go to school in college. And I kid you not, they literally told me I was not allowed because it would impact their debt. Like literally they told me I was not allowed. And that was like a big turning point in that relationship where I was like, this is going absolutely nowhere. Like the fact that this person would discourage me from going to college and bettering my life as a 17-year-old girl, that was really like a red flag for me. And I still stayed in that relationship for like a year after that. And that was just, I don't know. But anyways, so that was the first time I really started to think about what I wanted to do with my life. And years later, I actually left that person, and I was a mom of one, and I went back to school for early childhood education, which is what I wanted to pursue. And even though I didn't actually finish my program, I ended up getting pregnant. I still to this day am so proud of myself for having took that giant leap of faith, because no one in my family went to college. It just wasn't something that was really even talked about. And this is just, I was like a first generation, like kind of college, student. It wasn't something that really anyone in my family was doing. And I had like cousins, I think, who went to college, but they weren't people in my immediate circle. So it wasn't like all of my friends were off to college. I literally was a young mom and decided to do this for myself. And still to this day, even though I didn't finish that program, I'm absolutely so proud of myself that I did that. And that was like a real turning point. That's when I really started to see my goals as attainable, even though I didn't finish. I didn't finish by choice. I had actually planned to go back the second year, but once I had my newborn second daughter, I literally just couldn't picture myself doing that. And so I did stay home. And I've been a stay-at-home mom ever since. But I could really dive deep here. So anyways, I want to say, okay, I became a stay-at-home mom by choice, but I stayed as a stay-at-home mom by pressure. And the reason I'm saying this is because being in the Christian community, I really felt, and I just want to say I love being a stay-at-home mom. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, so me saying this, like, please take this with a grain of salt and know that I absolutely love being a stay-at-home mom right now, even though I have started to pursue work from home options and like side hustles and stuff like that. For many years, I literally felt like my entire contribution to society was to be a stay-at-home mom. And I'm not saying that that's a bad perspective, but what I'm getting at is, for myself, I can honestly say, being a traditional wife and thinking that would be my entire existence for the rest of my life was never something I was happy about. It never was something I felt was really encouraging. If anything, I honestly felt kind of scared that might be my entire life. And maybe for you love being a stay-at-home mom, and you can't think of even working remotely from home, because for you, your entire you do feel like you have a purpose in just being a stay-at-home mom, and that is enough to fill your cup. For me, it genuinely was never the case. I literally, even as a homeschool mom, I did homeschool at the beginning because I enjoyed it, but I continued because I felt pressure from the Christian circles to just keep going. And even though I felt like we weren't thriving for like a long time in our homeschool and just in that whole like lifestyle, I did not feel we were thriving. I kept pushing it because I really felt it was my Christian obligation to homeschool my children and to be that like tradwife homemaker. But it literally never felt authentic, if I'm being honest. And I always felt like, and some people are going to come at me and say, that's a heart issue. You know, we should be completely happy to just be a homemaker, like, you know what I mean? And anything outside of that sometimes is frowned upon. And I feel like anyone who says, hey, this is not completely filling my cup, is viewed at as, hey, you just have heart issues, you are part of boss babe culture, you're part of the hustle culture, you know, you're not loving Jesus, you're not, you know, walking in his role for you, blah, blah, blah. There's a million things that I've heard over the years. And to be honest, like I said, I just have to say this. I don't know why it has to be so extreme, like one way or the other. Like if you want to do a little bit of like something for yourself on the side and to earn an income, or, you know, feel like you have something outside of like cleaning and cooking and homemaking and homeschooling, that's bad. I don't know why we villainize that. There are seasons where being, you know, doing anything while you have kids at home is very difficult. Like in the season of having, you know, infants and toddlers, and when you are a homeschooling mom and that's literally what you feel God's calling you to, and you feel completely sold out on it, you are happy in doing that, then, you know, obviously it might not be a season for you to take something else on. But in general, I think sometimes we have these perspectives that literally are so rigid, and they can be truly discouraging to women such as myself who literally just feel like, I don't know if this whole homemaking full-time thing is for me. I don't know if I could realistically dedicate my entire life's purpose to this and feel happy. So let me just say where I'm at. And this is kind of how I've changed, because I used to be a chronic people pleaser. So whenever I was really pushed and had these rigid ideas pushed on me, like, you need to do this, this is what God calls you to, this is your ministry, I was like, okay, I really need to do this. This is God's will for me, you know? And I feel like a lot of that was rooted in my inability to, for one, make my own personal decisions, and two, it was just rooted in insecurity, like, because I felt like, you know, if I were to pursue anything, how would that look on me? Like, that would be selfish of me. And I literally fed myself so many lies. I literally gaslighted myself into believing I would be a horrible mother and wife if I were to pour myself into anything else. And because of that, this led to years of irritability, years of ongoing depression, just insecurity. Like, literally, it kind of has even got to the point where I'm literally slowly breaking out of this after within the last 3 years. But for many years, I literally didn't trust my own judgment. And I think this also goes with the whole like man is the head of the household thing. I think that honestly really, this is not me agreeing or disagreeing. I'm not even going to touch on that. It's not a hill I want to die on right now, and I honestly just don't want to touch on it. So I'm not. But I will say, this left me in a state of literally feeling like I could not make decisions for myself. I did not trust my own intuition, did not trust my own judgment, and I would go as far to say I didn't even trust God. I literally felt like my entire life was waiting for God to just lead the way without taking any risk and making any decisions. And a lot of that was rooted in fear of what people would think of me, but also fear that God would condemn me to hell if I were to make the wrong decision. This lasted until about 3 years ago. And I want to say another breaking point for me, like I said, college was a really big breaking point. Even though I didn't end up continuing with it, it did give me confidence that I would have something to fall back on if I were to not continue as a homemaker. But what was I going to say? The next turning point was 2 years ago when I started learning to drive. I literally can't tell you guys how much of a turning point that was in my life, even as far as my own confidence, because I literally like my mom didn't drive growing up, and my dad was not around enough to really teach me, even though he did end up helping my sister learn years later. But at that time, honestly, driving wasn't even something I had at the back of my mind. I didn't have anyone to teach me. And then my auntie tried to teach me one time, and I didn't have the best experience. God bless her. She was really patient. But I ended up putting that off again for a long time, and I learned to drive at 28 years old. That's when I took driver's ed, a course that was meant for 16-year-olds. But, you know, that was probably the next massive turning point in my life, and just something that pushed me completely out of my comfort zone, and has now been one of the pivoting like breakthroughs in my adult life. Because once I started driving, again, it was a sense of accomplishment, like, hey, I can actually do things. Like, I can do adult things. Because for so long, I literally didn't even feel like an adult. Like, I felt like, even when I was a homeschooling mom, teaching my kids how to read and math, which they were learning, and I was honestly so proud of them. I still hold those memories very dear to me, even though my kids are no longer homeschooled. But I felt like a little girl in a grown-up's body for many years, like probably like 6 years. From the time I left college to pretty much the time I decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And honestly, again, guys, please take this with a grain of salt. This is me talking from the heart. This is not scripted. Literally, I'm talking off the top of my head. But it does seem like from the time I became a stay-at-home mom, I did start to feel like a little girl. Like, I just didn't feel like a contributing adult in my own household. And this is not really about finances. It's just, I really felt like I didn't have any space to pursue anything. And because I felt like all of my goals had to be related to like homemaking and homeschooling, things that like I love, but like I feel like they're just basic adult skills everyone should know. But I felt like because I wasn't allowed, which is my own standard I set for myself, but because I didn't feel like I was allowed to take risk or seek other opportunities outside of that, I literally just felt like a little child that was just going through the motions of life. And I still honestly struggle to feel like that sometimes. But I will say, as of this year, I am 30 years old, and I am finally in a place where I am stretching myself beyond my comfort zone. Even though some things have not significantly changed in my life, some things have significantly changed, some things have not. I feel like at this point of being 30 years old, breaking away from faulty belief systems, legalistic Christian culture, that could be its own video, but I do think it kind of does tie into this. When I stopped being I can't just say I stopped being a chronic people pleaser. This was very difficult. Like, this could be its completely own video, being a chronic people pleaser and how God's brought me through that. But anyways, let's just say now at 30 years old, after removing some toxic perspectives from my life and even some toxic friendships and relationships and communities, I feel like I am now at a place where I take more risks as an adult. I finally feel a little more confidence in my ability to make decisions for myself, which I still struggle with. I am actually currently in the process of praying and thinking of a decision for kind of a new career choice, which will allow me to remain as a homemaker. Let me just put that out there. And I thought really long and hard about these kind of things, and I'm still thinking long and hard about them. But now I'm at a place where I actually do feel like I'm allowed to take risks. I'm allowed to set goals that are a little bit, that seem out of reach, because I've conquered other things, and they might seem small in the grand scheme of things, but for me, they were hurdles that I overcame. And because of that, I feel like it's enabled me to feel like I can make decisions and I can actually make changes in my life if I don't like how my life is. And before somebody comes on here and attacks me and, says, well, because again, there's so much that could be said here. Like, I know I could be accused of having a heart issue, and if I were truly a Christian rooted in Jesus, I'd be completely happy with just, pouring myself into homemaking and pouring myself into being a stay-at-home mom. I just don't live by this rigid belief system. I don't live by rigid perspectives anymore. I don't live by this all or nothing attitude. And some people might think that's a blessing to live by that sort of attitude, but it also doesn't allow a lot of room for deeper understanding of individual circumstance. And I just don't think like that anymore. I don't think of this it's not black and white thinking. I just don't have that anymore. So for me, I don't see myself as a boss babe culture brainwashed girly. I really don't. But on the flip side, I also don't see myself as a Little House on the Prairie tradwife. I just don't fit into that. And I don't fit into the boss babe. But what I do fit into is a mom who loves her family, and loves her home, but also knows that in order to feel like the best version of myself, I need goals to work on. I need things to be working towards. And if I don't have that, I am not happy in life. I'm just not. And some people might be completely fine with their goals being within the home, like, having a goal to homeschool your kids until college, or having a goal to just completely learn all the traditional homemaking skills. And that might be enough for you. We are all so different. And this is just me being honest, saying, for me, it never was enough to be just a trad wife. I never felt, and this is not really a matter, I don't think, of being content in our circumstances, because I will always try to be content within my circumstances and make the best of them. But I don't think being content in our circumstances is a reason not to take risks in life or not to pursue anything outside of the home. If anything, I actually think our ability and willingness to learn new things and step outside of our comfort zones is actually a benefit to our families rather than a detriment. Because I've chosen to kind of try to think more deeply about what I want from life, I feel like it's enabled me to ask myself hard questions, like, for example, if I want to work, am I willing to work outside the home, or am I not willing to do that? Am I looking for a career that's home-based, or is that just completely, not realistic and probably something I shouldn't pursue? And also just like, do I want to do this thing for me, or do I want to do it for other people? Like, I've truly come to a place where I ask myself hard questions, and I think that's a good thing. And I just like I like who I am. Like, just even though becoming the most, to this day, authentic version of myself, it's cost me a lot. It's cost me a community, in a sense, because I just no longer fit into certain communities, and in certain friendships. It's cost me friendships as well, because I just no longer fit into certain friendships. I do feel like for many years I had a pattern of choosing the same kind of friends, and I feel like now what I'm looking for in friendships is completely different. And because of that, I don't have any friends right now, like, not really, other than a few people that I feel like truly are people with a growth mentality. I don't have a big circle of friends, and I used to talk to people all the time, even though I was incredibly lonely still. And, they weren't always people that would actually hang out with me in person. Most of it was online, social media, and I've just really become so selective with who I keep in my life. I heard a quote from a woman on YouTube who I love and follow, and one thing she said is something I think she said her therapist told her, but it's that we don't, like, the only people that should be in our life are people who think we are awesome. And I don't mean that in a prideful way of people not challenging us, but I believe that in the sense of people in our life should be building us up, and we should be building them up to be the best version of themselves, and for them to encourage us to be the best version of ourselves, And in some friendships and just communities, it just is not a healthy, it's just not healthy. And it's just taken me many years to be okay with letting people down and letting people go, and just letting them, like, let Mel Robbins, it's the year of let them, guys. Let them. Even though literally I've not even heard that podcast or read that book, but one of my best friends, who's literally been one of my girls for like 10 years now, and she doesn't even live in the same country as me, but she is my absolute bestie. I love her. And she's actually the one who told me that quote. She knows who she is. And it's funny because we've been through like the muck and mire together, and we're still like best friends. And I think it's because we both have very similar goals of just persevering and getting, we're striving for a better life rather than just settling for kind of a mediocre existence, which doesn't really make us happy or challenge us to be the best version of ourselves. And I think that's what's kind of really been the glue to our friendship, is the fact that we are both, how do I say, scrappy little fighters. So anyways, guys, I'm just going on a rant here, but anyways, I've changed as a person, and that's okay. That's okay. I would encourage you to be okay with change. Be okay with having your mind changed. Be okay with going through an uncomfortable period if it means coming out on the other side as a stronger, happier, and more whole individual. Be okay with that. Be okay with losing people who can't accept the new version of you. Like, be okay with that. You know, sit in that and let it, like, be okay with that season of being uncomfortable if it means that it's going to take you to a better place. This was probably the most recent chat to date on my channel. I don't know how well it's going to go over, but you know what? Maybe it can encourage you. And it was literally just spoken off the top of my head, non-scripted, literally just me sharing my thoughts. And hopefully I feel the same tomorrow. But anyways, yeah, that is all I want to share with you guys. I hope that can encourage you that it's okay if you no longer fit into a past version of yourself, and embrace that uncomfortable season. Okay? That's all for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. I'm gonna go run some errands now, but I will see you guys in the next one. And let me know if you like this video. Do you like this style of video? Maybe I'll do another chat. Let me know. Okay, bye guys.